everyone, I'm Dan Abrams, and this is Court Camp.
Ready to take the play?
I hope you die in prison as well.
First up, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, for the sentencing of Claudette Mitchell. The 37-year-old pled guilty to child neglect resulting in death after a 7-week-old baby died at the daycare she operated out of her home. Mitchell pled guilty and claimed responsibility, even though she also said she did not know how the child died. An autopsy later revealed the cause of death to be blunt force trauma to the child's head. Now, at sentencing, Mitchell faces a maximum possible sentence of 25 years in prison. In a courtroom packed with more than 50 members of the victim's family, anguished reactions can be heard from the gallery after Mitchell is sentenced to 3.5 years in prison. Perhaps sensing growing tension in the gallery, Judge Jeffrey Wagner issues a warning.
This is still a courtroom. Everybody's going to have to meet the decorum of the court.
The message, however, is ignored. Seconds later, tempers reach boiling point. After Mitchell's removed from the courtroom, a brawl breaks out between her supporters and the victim's family, including the baby's father. As deputies struggle to separate the families, the warning sound of a stun gun can be heard. But it does not bring order to the court. For more than a minute, the bad scene plays out. Ultimately, the victim's father and grandfather end up on the floor and are handcuffed until the situation is brought under control. Both the victim's father and grandfather claimed they were just protecting themselves and were released shortly after. No one ended up being charged following the courtroom clash. Next, we head to Atlanta, Georgia, for the sentencing of Tex McIver. The 75-year-old attorney was found guilty of felony. He accidentally shot McIver while driving back from their horse farm. Diane McIver was the president of an airport service company. Prosecutors believe she was killed for her money. McIver pled not guilty, but after a trial lasting 19 days, he was convicted. Before sentencing, friends of the victim make heartfelt statements to a packed courtroom.
The actions have traumatized me. I lost sleep because I so wanted to believe that it was an accident.
This has been one of the saddest and most horrific incidents that's happened in my life. To have lost my friend of over 40 years that was more like a sister than a friend has broken my heart.
Next, it was McIver's turn to speak, which is what he did for 15 bizarre minutes, touching on just about everything. Everything, that is, except the crime.
Last week, on one given day, I received 11 different pieces of mail. One is a lady from Ireland. Then there is the most unique individual I think I've ever corresponded with. His name is Trent Jones. He's a racehorse jockey in Perth, Australia. And his favorite racehorse, Hobart, has been retired just this year. And that now he and Hobart are free to step into the surf in Perth and play.
The surreal statement continues as McIver moves on to his next subject, thanking his friends in the community.
Friends delivering Chick-fil-A, one of my huge favorites, and one of the things I miss the most, I guess.
Before he was done, he hit one more subject completely unrelated to the murder, his godson's favorite basketball team.
He's a huge fan of the Golden State Warriors. Instead of anything, I had to say Go Warriors before this segment was over.
Finally, he gets around to discussing the relationship with his late wife of 11 years.
The luckiest day of my life was when Diane chose me. And in doing so, we started a relationship that was, can only be described as amazing. We loved each other like small children.
goes on to explain just how deep their connection was.
In fact, it became, if people are able to believe it, telepathic. And my conscience would hear these words. This is truly real. She had telepathically communicated those words. Is this truly real? It is truly real. It is truly real.
Before announcing his sentence, Judge Robert McBurney offers a reaction to MacGyver's words and peculiar choice of subject matter.
I'll tell you what you thought was important for me to hear, and we heard about racehorses in Australia, and Chick-fil-A, and telepathy. I didn't ever hear you say you're sorry for what you did. To me, that silence speaks volumes.
All that was left was the sentence.
The penalty for felony murder is life. We're going to sentence you, count 2, to a term of life with the possibility of parole.
MacGyver was sentenced to life in prison and is eligible for parole after 30 years when he would be 105 years old.
How sick can you be? What else have you done?
Next, we go to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina for a bond hearing. The defendant's 49-year-old Richard Hilliard was charged with voyeurism. Hilliard allegedly invited both young and underage girls onto his yacht, the aptly named Yachtso Trouble, and secretly recorded them in the shower. One of the girls on the boat found the iPad that was recording the shower, took it, gave it to her mother, and turned it into police. Before his bond's announced, Hilliard, who helps run his family business, makes a brief statement remotely to the judge.
I got a family business first offense. I actually entered criminal justice.
Also appearing as one of the victims, along with her infuriated mother.
This man is supposed to be an upstanding citizen in our community, and we have trusted him. If he knew anything about criminal justice, he would realize that videoing girls in a shower, which was premeditated, is wrong. These girls have lost so much. They are very violated. They fear their lives. He is a dangerous man. My daughter, who just turned 18, is supposed to be her graduation week. She has babysitted for his children for years. How long has this been going on? That he has violated my daughter. That he's been looking at her in the nude. How sick can you be? What else have you done?
Next, it's the victim herself, who offers a few words to the judge.
It's not fair for me and the rest of these girls that have to live in the same community as him. And he knows where I live. He knows my family. I've been babysitting for him for 2 years now, and for her to have to see what he has videoed is sick. Thank you.
Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
I'm going to set your mind.
Hilliard makes bond, but in the next 24 hours, he's arrested again when it's discovered that 7 other girls, including minors, had been secretly videotaped in the nude. Hilliard was before a new judge to ask for a second bond.
Additional bond, $175,000, that's $25,000 cash or surety.
Hilliard posts bond a second time, but his freedom will only be temporary. Law enforcement would go on to discover that over the course of 8 to 10 years, Hilliard had secretly recorded at least 16 child victims at various locations, including his yacht, his homes, and various hotel rooms. Of the 8 total charges he faced, Hilliard eventually pleaded guilty to sexual exploitation of a minor and possession of child pornography. He's sentenced to 35 years in prison. Next, we're in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, for the sentencing of Benjamin Hooks. The 25-year-old pled guilty to possession of a firearm by a felon and 2 counts of human trafficking. The trafficking charges were for holding a woman captive in his basement, chaining her to a pole, forcing her to have sex with him and other men. She was only able to escape when Hooks left the house to go to court to face a charge of beating another woman.
This defendant tied the door shut with wire so she could not leave. She was given food sparingly and often had to share it with a dog who was down there.
Now, before learning his sentence, other women who claimed they were sexually assaulted by Hooks bravely come forward to confront their attacker.
I've been in situations with him to where he has put guns in the back of my head just because I didn't want to do a sexual act with his friend.
When given a chance to speak, Hooks quietly addresses his victims.
I pray for you every night.
But rather than continuing with an apology, he callously shifts the blame onto the victims.
I want y'all to become greater women, be independent, and stop letting people take advantage of you.
And Hook's attitude goes from bad to worse after he's hit with an 18-year prison sentence.
Hey, Judge. My
Oh my God!
Audible gasps can be heard after Hooks drops that bomb.
Hey, Judge. My
Oh my God!
His attorney seems disgusted with his performance as well and throws down his folder.
Y'all too. My y'all.
Hooks continues to rant as he's escorted away by deputies. Benjamin Hooks is currently serving an 18-year sentence in the Wisconsin Department of Corrections for the human trafficking and gun possession charges.
And I will personally see to it that you never see a free day in your life.
Next, we head to family court in Putnam County, West Virginia for a divorce hearing. The parties are Arthur Haig, a church pastor, and his estranged wife, Lillian. The judge is William Watkins III. At issue is Haig's refusal to sign a deed which would allow his wife to sell their home. But before things get started, Judge Watkins has a stern warning for Haig.
Mr. Haig, if you say one word out of turn, you're going to jail. Do you understand me? Yes or no?
Judge Watkins is angry with Haig because he believes the pastor revealed personal information about him through the media.
After we closed here, you went out there and talked to a reporter. This morning, I now see an article with a picture of my home. My home. Right next to you. My wife is disabled. She's there alone. And you disgusting piece of... You put up our picture of my house. I swear to you, I'm holding you personally responsible for anything that happens at my house. I promise you. And if I so much as see somebody blanket my home, my wife, my family, you and me are going to have a problem.
Haig's name was not mentioned in the article, which was about Judge Watson's standing in a local homeowners association. But that doesn't stop him from continuing his attack.
It's disgraceful. Well, buddy, it's personal. And I promise you, you will not hear the end of it from me. You know, when you threaten my family, I will personally see to it that you never see a free day in your life. You understand that? You're going to jail. I swear to God.
Watkins eventually calms down and tries to get back on track.
You swear testimony about to give you the truth, whole truth, nothing but the true self to God.
Yes.
Ms. Wallace, what's the nature of your motion?
Yep, the closing attorney is requiring his signature.
All right, Mr. Haig, what's your response?
My response is I cannot sign this because it's against my conviction.
Watkins rules against Haig and says he must sign the deed and pay a third party to expedite the process.
I'm going to direct that Mr. Haig pay him the sum of $500 for his services no later than Friday.
I'll sign it. I don't have that kind of money.
I don't care. Well, shut up. I didn't tell you to talk. Did I tell you to talk? What did I tell you right at the beginning of the hearing? Are you deaf? Huh?
The judge ultimately rules in favor of Lillian Haig and orders the pastor to pay a number of expenses once the house is sold.
Shut up. I didn't ask you to speak.
But Haig has his own response when he files a complaint against Watkins with the Judicial Investigation Commission. Judge Watkins admits to overreacting and recuses himself from the case. But it doesn't end there. It's later determined that Judge Watkins has a history of berating litigants and attorneys.
I don't travel.
Ma'am, I didn't ask you for a speech. I'm not.
Well, I'm not. You know, you say
Hush.
that.
What, you think this is funny? You
No,
want to
I
go to
don't,
jail now?
sir. I don't.
Then shut
I don't
up.
think it's...
Take his ass into custody. I'm tired of it.
Watkins' case makes it to the West Virginia Court of Appeals, where he's censured for 24 violations, including his offensive language and failing to complete required tasks like entering protective orders into the state's registry. Watkins is suspended without pay for the remaining 4 years of his term.
I have sinned. I am aware that for my crimes, anything short of death is really merciful.
Next, we go to Bakersfield, California, for the sentencing of Jonathan Hearn. The 27-year-old pleaded guilty to manslaughter in the death of Robert Limone. Hearn killed the victim because he was having an affair with Limone's wife, Sabrina, and the two wanted to be together. The Limones were part of a local swingers club, and at first, Limone was okay with the affair. But when Limone later asked his wife to stop seeing Hearn, she and Hearn put a plan into action. Instead of a divorce, Hearn went to Limone's workplace, seen here in this surveillance video, and shot the father of two. Hearn was arrested and charged with murder. But the state also wanted to charge Sabrina. Hearn agreed to testify against her to avoid a possible life sentence.
She was somebody that stood out to me automatically as having a real magnetic personality.
When you used the word affair, you were having sex with Miss Limone.
Yeah, it was a primarily emotional affair that we were hooking up from time to time. We talked about things that I would say normal people who are dating or going out probably wouldn't discuss.
Eventually, the couple began discussing ways to eliminate Limone.
It definitely turned from humor into something that actually began to materialize.
After reviewing the evidence, a jury found Limone guilty of murder, conspiracy, and being an accessory. A month later, after Hearn pleaded guilty to man first, the former firefighter has a few things he'd like to say.
To Robert's family and his dear friends, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for stealing your brother, your friend. I'm sorry for the effects of my pride and lust and anger. I'm sorry for my inexcusable involvement with Robert's wife. I'm sorry for the grief that I caused. To Robert's mother that broke her heart. The two children whose dad I took away from them. I'm so sorry. I cannot deserve your forgiveness. I am aware that for my crimes, anything short of death is really merciful. By the grace of God, I am what I am.
It's now up to Judge Brown to determine the sentence.
To be ordered, the defendant served 25 years, 4 months in prison.
3 months later, Sabrina goes before the same judge to learn her sentence.
As to count 1, murder in the first degree, probation will be denied, and the defendant will be sent to the Department of Corrections for 25 years to life.
Limone won't be eligible for parole until 2036, when she will be 56. Because of his guilty plea, Hearn is eligible for parole in 2028, when he would be just 38 years old. That's it for this edition of Court Cam. I'm Dan Abrams. Thanks for watching.